On today's show, we have got a lot of picks. In the words of Kyle Clifton. And you know what? There's no reason for us to drag this on any longer. Start the show. Welcome to episode of Sitting Courtside. It is Friday, January 26th. Holy moly. We are a full month into 2024, and college basketball has not stopped delivering. We've got a full slate today for you, a ton of picks. I mean, literally a ton of picks. So let's get into it, Kyle. Give the people what they're looking for.
All right, we got to go through this recap pretty quick because we do have so many games ranging all the way from Saturday through Monday's action. So we're giving you picks Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. But first, I went to a game on Tuesday night. It was Louisville versus Duke, and I have went to a lot of sporting events in the last 2 years. Like, it has been kind of ridiculous how much we've traveled around for sporting events. But I have to say something. I don't really care about Louisville, but I do know they have quite the tradition in basketball. They have 3 national titles, 10 Final Fours, a shit ton of tournament appearances. I have never been to like a major D1 school sporting event, college basketball, college football, anything like that, and been so disappointed by the lack of fans in the stands. Like, it was insane how few people were there. And I understand it's a Tuesday night. I mean, it was against a top 12 opponent. It's against Duke. People like to watch those games usually. But the student section was 2 rows. 2 rows. I've went to Ball State games on Wednesday nights when there's a foot of snow outside and there's more students in the stands for 2 crappy MAC teams playing. I was so disappointed. It's by far the least or the worst atmosphere I've ever been to for a major sporting event.
Honestly, when you told me that, I was a little shocked, I have to admit, because Louisville is, I think, probably like a top 20. If you're a
Mhm.
coach, like that's a top 20 program in the country. You would think also, like, if you go to Louisville,
Yeah.
yes, it is in a like a medium-sized city, but like you're going for the sports. Like Louisville's
Yeah.
always top 5 in sports with the like Capital One Cup or whatever.
Hmm.
And yeah, the basketball team's not good. Whatever. There is nothing better to do on a Tuesday night in Louisville. I would know. I go to work there every single day.
Yeah.
How there was no one there. I mean, I remember going to games 7, 8 years ago when they were like a mediocre team. They're coming off the national title, but they weren't great. That was Patino was gone already. And it would be like a Thursday against Boston College, and it
Mhm.
was packed.
Yeah.
When you told me there was like no one there, I was like, Louisville may have hit an all-time low.
Yeah. I honestly couldn't believe it. My wife just kept asking, like, are they just show up late? Like, is this Miami where they all show up like halfway through the first half or something? I was like, knew it wasn't going to be a sellout, but I didn't expect it to be that bad. I
Yeah.
mean,
So usually anytime there's a Louisville basketball game, the methodology is you avoid downtown at all cost because it is going to be a madhouse every single time. And anytime I went to a game down there, you would think people wouldn't go until like 20 minutes before tip off because 4th Street, which is where people go for bars, right across the street. No, people leave like an hour before the game to go in. So like it is always jam packed well before game time.
I just had to complain about it because it's like when you're out banned by the other teams on a
Oh yeah.
weeknight, like that's just ridiculous. Just
I mean,
ridiculous. But
we're
anyway,
turning into a Louisville hate podcast at this
I
point.
know we really are just bashing them at all good out. All right, let's go through the upsets and other big results real quick before we get into the loaded weekend slate. Let's start off with the biggest upset of the week so far. Number 6, Kentucky, huge favorite on the road against South Carolina, but the Gamecocks blow them out 79-62. And maybe Kentucky's starting to make me look a little bit bad here with a couple of slip ups here against not so great opponents.
We maybe should have taken our own advice. We semi ended the show last week mentioning Kentucky maybe a fraud. There's a couple other teams we'll discuss that were also on that list of 3 that also appear to be frauds.
Yeah.
But to South Carolina is maybe the weirdest point. Like, and it
Yeah.
wasn't close at
No.
all.
Blowout.
I'm I again I feel partially responsible as well. We got on the Kentucky bandwagon. I thought they were gonna be really good. I thought they were gonna be awesome when they got their 7-footers back. They couldn't look worse at this
Yeah.
point in the season, especially when we're a month and a half out. Not looking good for Cal. And Coach Calipari, as they like to say in Kentucky, might be on the hot seat for reals for reals.
And their defense is about to fall out of the top 100 in efficiency, so it
That's
is just
insane to
getting
me.
worse. So,
That's insane. With that
yeah,
athleticism, how can you just not play mediocre defense?
uh I really do not know. Okay, so another team that I was worried about last podcast, and I'm really worried about them now. Number 11 Oklahoma gets blown out at home by Texas, 75-60. I mean, Texas, that's a whole different thing. They've figured out something here lately. There's wins over Baylor and now Oklahoma. But Oklahoma only has one big win this season, and that was against Iowa State at home. And that's a good win, but that's the only win they have, and they play in a huge conference. So that means all these games are going to be very big games the rest of the way. And I'm getting a little bit nervous because they really struggle to score the ball.
Yeah, that was a show me something game for me with Oklahoma. I didn't touch the game, but I was eyeing it. They were favored, I'm pretty sure, by a decent margin. Was it seven and a
Mm-hmm.
half, 8.5, somewhere in there? I
Yeah,
feel
I
like.
think. Mm-hmm.
And to show up like that at home against a
Mm-hmm.
rival, they might need to be put on the fraud watch more than anyone. And I'm
Yeah,
really interested to see what happens to them as they start to go through the Big 12 stretch here. Because if you look at their numbers, if you're just a math person, I don't want to say math guy, math person, they should be a top 15 team day in and day out. Shocked by the result.
yeah, yeah. They have. It looks like 9 more games against ranked opponents, and that doesn't include Cincinnati, Texas, who they also still have to play
All right, what do you think
against.
the record's going to be in those 9 games right now? If you had to bet on
I
it.
would go 3-6. I would say in those
Okay.
9 games.
I'm somewhere in there too. I was like 2-7, 3-6,
Yeah,
somewhere in there. I don't think it's going to end up well for them. Like I think
no,
we talked about this maybe earlier in the year. After their first loss, we're like, yeah, they're going to be a team that has like 10 losses at the end of the year. Looked like they should have been in easy, and then they're going to be like a fringe team, like a
yeah.
play-in 11 seed or something.
Yep, and to speak of that, they are now 35th in net, so they have really fallen back in the net
Yikes.
rankings.
Not good.
Another, well, I guess this really wasn't that big of an upset. They were slight favorites. Number 10, Illinois gets beat in overtime by Northwestern, 96-91. I will say just one thing about this. So disappointed that they actually played Shannon for a big chunk of this game. That's really the only point I had on this one, but I'm just disappointed in Underwood.
Well, someone called that, if you
Yes,
recall,
you did.
because that's what drew the conversation out last time. Was I said that Boo Boo and Northwestern, it was a big game for them. They needed to win the game. They won outright. They also were 4.5-point dogs at home, I believe it was.
Yep.
So huge win for Northwestern. That's what they needed. I'm going to keep following the rule of thumb, though. Big win followed by a big loss. I don't care who they're playing. They could be playing freaking Rutgers or something. They're going to lose that game by at least double digits.
Yeah. That is their fourth quad one win this year. I think that would shock a few people to know that. And then not really an upset based on the spread, but based on their recent form and their ranking. Number 8, Auburn, their win streak comes to an end. 79-75 is to Bama. This was one of those lines that if you're just looking at it like from like an outsider's perspective, hasn't
Right.
watched a lot. You see number 8, and you get 3.5 points. Well, Bama ends up covering it by just a half a point, but I actually took Bama, bought it down to -1, and it was a really fun game to watch. Very competitive.
Yeah. So I wasn't surprised by that. I think we talked about that. I was avoiding the lines. I love Auburn. I said that was going to be a tough game. Did like the over. The over did not hit if I remember correctly. I think
No,
we were
they did
short
not.
by like
Yep.
6 points.
Mm-hmm.
Crazier thing though is we had the closest thing to a bad beat like in a while. Auburn hits a late 3. They don't count it. I
Yep.
watched the replay at least 100 times. I'm
Uh,
convinced that referee was in on it because he was so quick to be like, nope, doesn't count.
yep.
That was a lot closer. That was a lot closer than that guy was trying to give it credit for it, and which would have
Yep.
been just brutal, brutal for
Uh,
Alabama bettors.
I completely forgot about that, but I remember they cut to the next game real quick, and I was
Oh
like,
yeah,
I need to know if
like
they're going to
that,
review that or
like
not.
that. And I watched the review
Uh-huh.
from the TV. They literally didn't review it. Guys, just like he's
Uh-huh.
jumping in the air like he's like a ballerina. No shot, no shot. People just walk off the court. They're like, all right, cool, who
Yeah,
cares?
yeah,
But you get that. See, that's the mindset though. Like if you're not used to this gambling world, right? You're just like, yeah, it doesn't
Mhm.
matter either way if you count it or not. We're gonna walk off the court, and the refs are like, cool, whatever. No, if you had
Yeah,
3.5 Auburn, you're like, review that. Like that's just
yeah,
we've talked about this, I think, before. Like we need to start because gambling is becoming so popular. They legitimately need to have like the Kirk Herbstreits of the world that are like super experts at like the ins and outs played, do like the main channel. And then we need to
mhm,
have a side piece where it's like guys
yes,
like me and you
uh-huh,
that are just chatting it up gambling style that are
yeah,
getting like it's a different view of the game. We are watching it
yeah,
like it could be literally we talk about a 40-point blowout. We're like, no, got the
yeah.
over. They're still
Uh-huh.
there.
That would be so great. Would
It'd be
love that.
wonderful. Also, just for reference, Northwestern plays on Saturday at 8:30 against Ohio State at home. I would take Ohio State by like
Okay.
10 points in that game.
That's a good one too. I didn't even see that one on the schedule. And then this last one for upset, I just have to note it because I completely jinxed this team. They were 17-0 in their last 17 games.
Yeah.
Stanford loses at Furman 78-68. And I really feel like I'm the one to blame on that one.
I've been blaming myself this whole time, calling it Domingo Curse. I think we're just gonna have to call it the Courtside Curse, which
Yeah.
sounds way better.
Yeah.
By the way, anytime we're like, yeah, we've not talked about this team, they're awesome.
Yeah.
They will lose their next game
Uh-huh.
inevitably.
Yeah.
It does not matter.
Yeah, because I knew they had a big game coming this week. So I was like, I'm going to get them on the schedule. We're going to talk about them. And I'm like, oh, 17-3. That means they lost.
Yeah. What would be hilarious is if we could get someone just like listen through the tape of like every podcast, and right before the tournament goes, but okay, these are the top 10 teams in the country, and this is the one team that they reference like one time the entire year. That's your national title winner.
Yeah, there you go. Go with that too. All right, some other big results before we move into the picks. Number 4, Houston gets a huge road win over number 21 BYU, 75-68. I know we were on opposite ends of this
Yeah.
one, but big win for Houston there.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't unexpected.
Yeah.
I'm more upset that they didn't cover.
Yeah.
Like they didn't even cover, and they gave up quite a few points to a team that does not run up and down. Pretty sure Houston's line was only like 65, so like they well exceeded their team total. BYU though, they might be like Oklahoma with lipstick on at this point. I'm getting concerned.
Yeah,
Getting very concerned because they're not getting blown out by any means, but like they're not winning either. You got to win a couple.
Yeah, they're on our schedule for the picks this weekend, so I'll save all my stats for that later. But I mentioned I was worried about them last pod.
You did.
A lot more worried now. So,
speaking of stats, really quickly, I just happened to come across this while I was looking at picks tonight. So a team that we talked about last year that I'm pretty sure we both did pretty well betting their games, and we've not mentioned them once, and this will be the only time we mention them. Okay. Detroit Mercy. Do you remember them?
Yeah, aren't they like? Haven't they not won a game?
They're 0-20.
Yeah,
0-20. Just how do you have a will to play at that point?
Yeah,
because you're not in a good conference either. It's not like you're playing good teams. Like 0-20.
Yeah.
That's
and
insane.
I forget who the player was last year that was going for like the scoring title. That was the reason we were like paying attention to those games.
Yeah, and they did a good job of covering. I remember too, they had like crazy spreads too. They'd be like plus 17.5 and cover easy. They're not a good program by any means. This is still, I saw 0-20. I'm just like, is anyone on the team still? Like who plays on that team?
Another big result is that Wisconsin, they survived the barn 61-59. This is a classic Wisconsin game because 61 points. There's very few teams that do that on a regular basis outside of the history of Wisconsin.
So you said I forgot about that because that was the other one I was thinking about. I tweeted out Wisconsin minus 2.5 just smells like I was like, it's a bit smelly. Like it's a weird line.
Yeah.
And nailed it. It was minus 2.5. They didn't even cover it. Just the barn's different though. The barn's different.
No matter how bad the team is, it's just different.
That's an old school if you know right there.
Yep, exactly. And then the last one, Iowa State beating Kansas State 78-67. And I just wanted to mention this one because Iowa State is red hot right now. I think they've won 10 of their last 12 games.
Yep.
But this was a terrible beat for me. If you guys watch this game, there was less than 3 minutes left, and it was a 2-point game. Iowa State was up by 2. I had Kansas State +9. So in a matter of less than 3 minutes, they not only don't win the game, they end up losing by 11. Like it was just absolutely ridiculous. They just kept fouling. It was one of those where they're down 7 with like 15 seconds, there's no chance of winning, and the coach just keeps telling his team to foul.
Yeah. That I hate when you get that both ways though, right? Where you get like the team that is down like 5 or 6, and you need like 1 or 2 more points out of the other team, and then they don't foul, and you're like, what's going on? But Iowa State, I'm not sure how to feel about that. I feel like they did this exact thing last year, but earlier in the season. Well, I think they got all up to like fourth or fifth in the country. They're doing it again. I don't know if they're good though. Like they're always a sound defense. Their problem is they don't score extremely well, but they're winning big games when they need to win. Also, we did mention when they play at home, they're an auto bet. 9 was maybe a little bit much against a good Kansas State team, which I guess they did cover. So
Yeah,
either way, though,
which
yeah,
is funny
Iowa State
because
interesting team.
they're going to be the first team on our picks here coming up too. So
Gotta love
we'll
it. Are they
see
at
how.
home?
Yes, they are.
I'll take that one.
All right. Do you have your updated record before we dive in?
I do. I do. So actually, since last time we recorded, I'm 10-8-2.
Okay.
I needed a 5-1 night last night to do that too. So it's not exactly been the greatest. 332, 298, and 2 pushes in a matter of 2 days, by the way. 52.7%. I went up 1/10% since we last recorded.
I don't even have a push this whole season, and you
I have
have two
4. And I got 2 in like
Yeah.
2 days. Like I said, it's insane.
Yeah. I know I mentioned it last pod, but I am in a rut. I need tonight to go well. I have 4 picks tonight. Hopefully they go well. But I am 216, 170, and 0. I have now fallen under the 56%. Now I'm 55.9. So I'm
Really?
slowly just
I
I
didn't think
fell
I'd
under
ever
the
catch you.
56.
I thought it was just a foregone conclusion at this point. And also,
Yeah.
how many picks you have tonight?
I have 4 tonight.
Those are rookie numbers. You need to get those numbers up. I
It
got
was a rough
14.
slate, and I
I
knew I
got
wasn't going to be
14
able to
plays.
14. And then I looked at tomorrow night's slate, and it's like, well, shit, I'm gonna have like 2 tomorrow. So
Yeah, I looked at
Saturday, I'm
tomorrow's
gonna have to have like a
too.
million.
I didn't like
Yeah,
tomorrow's slate at all. I might honestly skip. There are some nights I know I'm a big mass guy at this point. There are some nights you just look at and you're like, let's just call a spade and let's just skip. Like there's just nothing of value there. Again, I want to bet a lot, but at the same time, I'm not going to put out losers. So
yeah, and like Friday night, the only big conference that ever plays is the Big Ten, and with the Big Ten only having like 2 good teams, it's hard to get a good matchup on those nights.
fair, fair.
All right, let's move it to the picks. We have so many, didn't even count how many. We're going to go through them as quickly as possible, try to get them all in. And we're going to start Saturday, 1:30 p.m. Number 7, Kansas, 16-3 at number 23, Iowa State, 15-4. Both teams have been pretty awesome since Thanksgiving. As I mentioned, Iowa State 10-2 since then with wins over Houston and TCU. Kansas is 12-2 with wins over UConn and Oklahoma since Thanksgiving. So 2 really good teams so far in the middle of the season. Kansas absolutely unbeatable so far at home, just like they normally are, 10-0, but just 2-2 on the road. And as Jordan mentioned, Iowa State just automatic at home so far, 12-0. And that looks like that's going to give them an advantage in the line because Ken Palm actually has Iowa State by 4 right now. I actually like Iowa State here. I'll try to buy it down closer to the money line, but I would lay a few points here because both Ken Palm and Net like Iowa State more than Kansas, and I'm just a little bit weary of Kansas right now. They haven't been as good as their record shows, so I will take Iowa State.
Yeah, I was thinking something closer to like 1.5.
Yeah.
Either way, like you said, more like 4 seems like a lot.
Mhm.
I mean, even if you get the home court advantage, I guess. But yeah, Iowa State taking them. Don't trust Kansas. They're still cheaters in my eyes.
Yeah.
Um, we'll see how I feel on Saturday. I said that
Yeah.
last episode, but Iowa State. Cyclones.
All right, let's take it to a big battle in the ACC, 2 p.m. Number 3, North Carolina, 16-3 at Florida State, 12-7. I know it's been a while since Florida State's been relevant, but in there right now, they sit outside the top 80, but they are second in the ACC, 2 games behind these Tar Heels. UNC comes to this game on a 9-game winning streak, but they haven't even played a single close game in there. They've won by double digits in all of those. Do you think Florida State can get a pretty big win, maybe a season-saving win that could get them on a run, or do you think UNC continues to roll?
So I'm gonna say this is gonna be a marquee game for North Carolina and what we can expect from them probably come tournament time, in
Mhm.
all honesty, because at this rate, they're looking like a 1 seed. That means they're probably going to have what should be relatively 2 easy games. We
Mhm.
know years past the 8-9 has tended to be now more so like these power 5-6 schools that are decent, like a Kansas State or an Iowa State.
Mhm.
I need to see what North Carolina has. They cannot sleepwalk through this game like they did last weekend with Boston College. They got
Yeah.
to show up. It's time to turn it on. If they don't win this game by a minimum of 8 points,
Mhm.
I'm going to stick with my fear of North Carolina and that they may be choke artists.
Okay. And so I'm going to stay away from the line here because right now Ken Palm does have them winning by 8 right now. And so,
Magician.
but Florida State, what we're used to with them is their length and like their athleticism really slowing down the other team. That's not been them this year. They've given up 70 and 80 points a lot, and we all know North Carolina can score. They're one of the best offenses in the nation. Let's see where they're at right now. Yeah, 16th in offense in the
Yeah.
nation. So I'm actually going to go with the North Carolina over. It's probably going to be in
Ooh,
the low 80s. I'll take North
okay.
Carolina to hit their
I
over.
like that too. I was gonna say I didn't want to do the over because I don't trust Florida State to score, but the
Mhm.
team total is intriguing, especially if it sticks around like 81. Also, you should just let that fire and said length.
Yeah, I got a
That's
little.
a classic you've been watching the combine way too much in years past because they
Yeah.
there's always like two guys on the live stream, whatever you want to call it now, where they
Yeah.
just say length. And it's like that is
Length.
it's not a word, but
Yeah,
okay.
you just
I'll
went
forget
with
the two
that,
guys
you
that
know?
do it. They do it all the time.
Yeah, I got a little tripped up there. Um, Another game at 2 p.m. on Saturday, number 20, Texas Tech at number 11, Oklahoma. I mean, we touched on it already with the Sooners. They're smelling a little bit fraudy, just 2-5 in their last 5 games. Do you like them to bounce back here at home, or do you like your guns up Red Raiders to get rolling here on the
Guns up, baby. Guns up. Okay. It's going to always be guns up. However, I'm going to say this based on the numbers. I think this line is going to land in like the 150s. Both these teams technically are efficient on offense. However, both don't necessarily play with a tremendous amount of speed. I'm going to take the under if it creeps into that. Texas Tech every day of the week. I 100% anticipate Texas Tech being favored in this game, which I don't really think gives you a lot of value at all since they're on the road. And it kind of goes against your entire system that you've talked about for most of this year, where it's a road team going to a home team in conference. They both are ranked technically. So I'm going to take the under as long as that line stays above the 150.
I love Texas Tech in this one, and it's kind of odd to say, but I actually trust their offense so much more than I trust Oklahoma's. I just haven't liked anything I've seen from Oklahoma's offense, and we know Texas Tech, even if their defense isn't ranked as high, they're 57th right now. They're a good defense. I fully trust them. I think it's going to be close to a pick 'em here, and I will take Texas Tech money line. But I do like the under because I agree with you're saying it's going to be in the 150s because like the projection has on Ken Palm it has it where is has it at 148 and
Okay.
that just doesn't scream like a Texas Tech Oklahoma game to me. So
Yeah.
I like the under, but I trust Texas Tech a little bit more, so I'll take
Yeah.
their money line.
I will say, I just double checked. The line that they had against Texas was 142 and a half, but Texas's
Oh, okay.
offense is not nearly as good, I feel like, as Texas Tech's has been historically.
Yeah.
So we might not get to the 150 mark, but we'll see.
Let's see. All right, another Big 12 battle also at 2 p.m. Man, 2 p.m. on Saturday. It's going to be fun. Texas 14-5 at number 21, BYU 14-5 as well. Since I written off Texas, they beat Baylor and Oklahoma, and now they have 3 quad 1 wins. I mentioned last podcast that I couldn't trust BYU. They lost to Houston, and now this is a needed win for them. They're tied for second to last in the Big 12
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
The metrics love BYU by a mile here. They actually have them winning by 8. Like, I think that's absolutely crazy. Seeing the form of Texas recently, these teams live in the mid to low 70s scoring wise, and I think this over under will be about 150, kind of like how you thought the Texas Tech one was. I'm going to take the under here because I've seen Texas's offense go away, and I'm definitely not going to rely on Texas to get a third big win in a row. So I will take the under.
Taking BYU, following the system I just referenced, Texas on the road, BYU. BYU is a different team at home than they on the road. BYU has never been an easy place to play at, even before they were in the Big 12, as
Yep,
it is.
that's true.
And they need this game. Like, need this game. This might be literally the biggest game for like a team to win this weekend is BYU beating Texas.
Agreed with that for sure. Speaking of hard places to play, anytime you're on the road in the Mountain West, it is difficult. And at 4 p.m. on Saturday, we have number 18 Utah State 17-2 at Boise State 14-5. These are the two top teams in the Mountain West. Boise sits at 7-1 at home. Utah State 4-2 on the road. If there is one thing that I have learned my lesson over in the last 3 weeks is just you cannot take any of the top 6 Mountain West teams on the road against a top 6 Mountain West team like at home. You can't do it. It's just you're losing the money. So I'm taking Boise State, whatever the line is here.
Well, but taking Boise, I'm also taking the over. I don't know what Vegas is doing. The last like
Mhm.
3 games, Boise's totals have been like 131 to 133.
Really, I haven't noticed it.
Insane,
Yeah,
insanely low. Now,
yeah.
again, I have mentioned before they do slow it down. They shoot a lot of threes though.
Hmm.
Utah State, very good team. They're going to have to score. to win this game.
Mhm.
I'm going to take
Yeah.
the over. I'm going to take
Okay.
them to win. Honestly, I could see Utah State being favored to win the game too.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah.
So
I think. Yeah, I agree.
all eyes point to Boise.
Yeah. Yeah. 5:30 Saturday, number 9, Arizona at Oregon. It's been a while since we've actually talked about a Pac-12 game on here, and it'll probably be far and few between anyway. The rest of the
Yes.
way, seeing this is lining up as a 2-bid max, maybe 3 if you think Colorado, Oregon make a run here at the end. These are 2 of the top 3 teams tied atop the Pac-12 currently. Arizona, their kryptonite has been away from home. All 4 of their losses have been on the road or neutral site. Do you think Oregon picks up a huge quad one win here, or do you take Arizona on the road?
Taking Arizona on the road. And I've also talked about the Arizona team totals, like anything below like 85, like just keep hammering it. Maybe not the greatest gambling strategy moving forward. Their totals have moved down significantly. Their total was down to 78, I want to say, their last game, which you would think be a hammer play. They only scored 77 points. Like,
Yep.
I don't know what is going on in Arizona, but the offense has become stagnant. They don't score, they don't shoot well. But the Pac 12 is doing about the complete opposite in basketball from what they did in football. They stink. No one is good. Arizona is going to continue to win by default because they are a talented basketball team. I will take Arizona every single time. I will win more than I lose, but the losses will hurt a lot. So I'll go Wildcats.
Yeah, I just from looking at the Kim Palm projection, they have them winning by 8. I just can't rely on Arizona to win by that much on the road against anybody right now. But I'm liking the total to be under because right now you're thinking at least the projection has it at 161. And if you look at Arizona's offense on the road compared to at home or on neutral site, it's a lot worse. So if I can get this at 160 and a half or higher, I'll take the under on it
Yeah.
for
Well, I
this
mean,
one.
there was like the total I think against UCLA literally last weekend I think only hit like 149,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that's after they had a storming last 10 minutes. Like
Mhm. And when you
that would
have one
be
of
great.
those, when you have one of those lines that are in the 160s, it just takes one team to go like 4 minutes without a
Oh
bucket,
yeah,
then you're just nailing the unders.
yeah. I
So
mean, you think about that. Like I said, I mentioned the only 2 teams consistently in the 160s the entire year has been Alabama and Purdue.
mm,
For us, obviously, we watch a lot of Purdue basketball being in Indiana. But if you
mhm.
watch Purdue, even like if they go more than like 2 minutes without a bucket, you're dead in the water.
Uh-huh, yeah,
Like you're relying on them scoring basically 90 points
yeah,
because again, they're probably going to play really good defense
yeah,
and hold the other team to like 75 at that point. So like
mhm,
you taking over 160,
yeah.
you're in for a
Dangerous
marathon
game.
because they're not hitting that
Yeah.
early.
No, they definitely are not doing that. Oh man, this one's a fun one on Saturday night, 6 p.m. Number 16, Dayton 16-2 at Richmond 14-5. It's a 2-horse race in the A10.
Yep.
Both of these teams undefeated in conference play, and they're 2 ahead of the rest of the field. So it's one of these 2 teams is going to win the conference. Richmond, though, they do not have a single quad one win yet this season, but they are 10-0 at home. Don't expect scoring here compared to what we just talked about with Arizona. These 2 teams play incredibly slow. Dayton is the second slowest team in all of the nation, and they thrive on defense. That being said, I usually would go with Richmond here. It's a huge game. It's going to be a packed house for this one. But Dayton's already won 3 road conference games by double digits, and they beat SMU on the road, who I think is a better team than this Richmond team anyway. So I will take Dayton, and I don't expect to have to lay too many points. Right now, Ken Palm only has them to win by 3, so I think you're laying 4 at most on this one.
I'm going to avoid spreads. I want to see what Dayton has. We haven't really got to watch them a lot this year, but like you mentioned, you already hinted at it. Like they play extremely slow, and it's going to be a big game either way.
Mhm.
That generally lends to poor shooting, surprisingly.
Mhm.
I'm going to go under as well. I'm really interested in the line, though. This might be one of
Mhm.
the lowest lines we will see all year.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So you're going with the under for the team
Un-
total or for the game
for
total?
the game,
Okay.
going under. Honestly, if it might be 127 in
Okay.
my brain. That's where I'm going. 127 might be the number, and I'm still going under.
Yep, I like it. I like it. All right, and then a game that we kind of previewed last podcast, 6 p.m. on Saturday. Bradley at Indiana State. It's the Mountain or the Missouri Valley Conference battle here. Talked about it last podcast. There's 3 teams that are pretty decent here. Here's 1 and 3 currently in the standings. 2 very different styles. Indiana State very high tempo, good offense. Bradley very slow, good defense. And I'm just going to roll with Indiana State. We talked about it last podcast. They're efficient on offense, and I just think at home against a Bradley team that does struggle to score. As long as they're hitting their threes, I don't think Bradley can keep up.
Yep. Going to take Indiana State spread. I'm going to take them money line. I'm going to take them team total over. Indiana State, go Sycamores.
Love it, love it. All right, it's the last game for Saturday until we move to Sunday, 8:30. Ole Miss 16-3 at Texas A&M 12-7. Two very desperate teams here. We talked about it at the end of the last podcast. Ole Miss just has been terrible in SEC matchups against quality teams. And Texas A&M has kind of had a terrible season so far. Where they do have 4 quad one wins. Like both these teams need this win and have a realistic shot at the tournament. They just have to pick up their play in conference battle. Who do you like in this kind of a mediocre matchup?
Can't trust either of them. I'll be honest. This is a tough game.
Yeah.
But I do think A&M's the more quality team. That's what we thought they were at least. So
Yeah.
they're at home. Let's take them, and fingers crossed. At this point, you just cross your fingers, hope that one goes through, but don't watch it. Just throw in the bet, hope that it comes out positive.
Yeah. So I'm going to go with you as well. I like the talent on A&M. Like they got 2 pretty legit, like good players on their team.
Mhm.
3 if you like the role player that's good at defense. But what I have seen from Ole Miss when they lose by a lot. So I'm okay with laying what you're going to have to. I think it's going to be like 4 points ish with A&M because of their home team. And if I expect A&M to win, I have a feeling Ole Miss falls apart in the second half. So I'll lay the points with A&M. All right, let's move it to Sunday, 1 p.m. Number 2, Purdue, 18-2 at Rutgers, 10-8. Basically, it just comes down to do you think the desperate team at home, who's 9-1 at home, can pull off the big upset? Purdue has struggled a little bit on the road so far, just 3-2 in the conference play. Do you like Rutgers to pull off the upset, or are you going to go with Purdue?
This is the point in the season last year that Purdue got their first loss. Almost everyone coming back. This is a revenge game for them. They've already had their quote unquote shocking loss against Nebraska. They pummel Rutgers. Pummel them.
Yeah,
However, the total will be in the 160s. You take the under because Rutgers won't score enough.
No, they cannot score at all. It doesn't matter where the game is played. They can't score it. Yeah, I'm taking Purdue, and you're probably going to have to lay a decent amount of points, but they've been blowing out almost everybody recently. So
for record keeping, I'm going to say the line is going to be 13.5.
Okay, and do you want to know what Ken Pom has in winning?
Yes, of course I do.
13.
Yeah, let's go.
It's always a fun thing to see what you guess compared to what they have. Because it's usually pretty right on.
Ken Pom might as well just hire me at this point.
All right, our last Sunday game, 5 p.m. Number 19, Memphis 15-4 at UAB 12-7. And really, it just comes down to, you think Memphis bounces back? They're currently on a 2-game losing streak. Do you give any shot in UAB pulling off the upset here, or are we going to go with both road teams on Sunday to get the win?
I'm gonna ride with Memphis. They're my team. I kind of stuck with them. Interesting though, I want to throw this out there really quickly. They have the 2 losses back to back. Every major smart guy, we'll say, in these media companies still has Memphis in the top 10. Shocking. I don't know what they're watching. Yeah, but I'll ride with Memphis.
All right, I'm also going to go with Memphis here. UAB, I'll be honest, haven't watched any UAB basketball all season, so I had to really look into their statistics, and just nothing really was glaring that was good in any way. And Ken Pom hates them down at 150, so I will go with Memphis on the road here.
They usually run and gun at UAB, but again, I haven't watched them this year, so maybe if you're not sure and you're like, I hate Memphis, take the over.
Yeah. I mean, they have the over/under being at 159 right now, so yeah, they must still do some running and gunning. All right, Monday, 7 p.m., number 12 Duke, 14-4 at Virginia Tech, who is 12-7. And this is a classic Monday Duke game on the road where this is usually, as a Duke fan, where they really stumble over themselves and get that one loss where you're like, what are you doing? Virginia Tech always is tough on them, too. It's always super loud there. They should have all 5 of their starters. They got Roach and Mitchell back. I'm not going to pick against Duke, so I'm going to take the under because both are efficient offense. So I expect it to be in the high 140s. And if I know one thing about Duke on these Monday conference road games is that they are sluggish to start, and then it's just a battle back in the second half. So I will take the under in this game.
So instantly I thought this is a classic spot Duke loses. Then you said it. And then I was like, but I don't want to be that guy. But then I had to follow the signs. Instantly, I realized I'm wearing Virginia Tech colors, unbeknownst to me. So at this point, I got to take Virginia Tech. I have to.
I was forgot at the beginning of the podcast to ask because I noticed it and then it just hit me when you said it again.
Yeah.
It's like Virginia Tech colors there. All right, last game on the slate, 9 p.m. Monday night. We have some couple good games on Monday
Yeah.
finally. Number 4, Houston, 17-2 at Texas, 14-5. I don't really know what new to say about either of these teams. We've talked about Houston all season, and we've talked about Texas all podcast. So I think it really comes down to, do you like the home team to get the big win? I actually hate this spot for Texas coming off of 2 really big wins.
Yeah.
They're going to have a huge game against BYU. Is it BYU this week or who is it?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's BYU.
Yeah. So
At
like
BYU.
Houston, they're just in a different level than the teams that Texas have played recently. So I will go with Houston here on the road.
Yeah, I don't know about the spread. I feel like depending on what happens on Saturday, it could be dicey for spread. So I'm going to avoid giving any suggestions for that. You have to go over to the Twitter to see that. But I'm going to take the over because I think this under the over under will be lower. And Houston has proven to me they can play a little bit of offense when they need to. They do shoot the ball well. If Houston actually covers this game, I don't care what the spread is. If they cover, win, I will start believing that Houston's a good basketball team.
Yeah.
Then and only then will I believe it.
I've actually been pretty impressed since those 2 losses, just the way they've blown out the teams they've played since. So I'm really looking forward to this one, seeing if they can keep it up against what might be a really hot Texas team at that point.
Right, exactly.
All right, we got just a couple minutes left. If you have any other picks, did you have any other ones?
Oh, man, you covered, I think, everything on planet Earth.
I know we had
only
so many.
thing I'm going to ask, and it'll be a mute point by the time this show comes out. Who do you got tonight? I think we talked about it. San Francisco, Gonzaga.
I went with the team total over for Gonzaga. It was like
Okay.
80, 81, I think, is what
I went San Fran plus 9.5.
Yeah. I didn't like the spread, and I'm not ever laying 10 points ish with Gonzaga the rest of the season. So can't do it.
I was curious, we've talked our trash about Gonzaga. We've generally been pro San Francisco. Just curious what you're going with. But again, mute point by the time y'all listen to this, you'll get to hear which one of us is smart and which one of us is dumb. Or both. I don't know.
All right. Well, since we don't have the spreads, you'll have to check us out on Twitter all weekend because we will be giving out just incredible amounts of picks. It'll be one of those epic Saturdays where if you set all your alerts, your phone will be going off all day because of how many games are going on. But check us out on Twitter at MingoMade1 and at Kyle Cliffy. We'll be back next week to recap the weekend, and best of luck in your bets.
Love you guys.